Hello bookworms! Today I'm going to be doing my March wrap-up. I read 12 books in March and I'm so happy about that, and some of them are like big books, so I'm even happier about that. But yeah, so I should just get started because I have a lot of books to talk about, so here we go. The first book that I read is The Star-Touched Queen by Roshani Chokshi. And I really enjoyed this one. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling. It follows a girl named Maya who goes to this kingdom with this guy Amar, and it's very hard to put the plot into words. It's a very beautifully written book. I was really enchanted with the whole beginning, and the writing and everything was just so gorgeous that I was immediately pulled into the story. But then I will say that the second half of the book dragged a little bit for me. I didn't find it as engaging as the first half of the book, and I think that there is a reason for that, but I won't say what it is because it's like a spoiler. But overall, I did really enjoy it. I did think that it was a little bit difficult to get to know the characters, and it's not something that is a very quick paced book, and it's not something that makes a whole lot of sense. It does work very well, and like I keep saying, it's written very beautifully. It's very descriptive. I think what really I loved most about this was more the world that they were in as opposed to the story. But I thought that it was really good. I really liked it, and I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Mortal Heart by Robin Lefevers, and this is the third and final book in the His Fair Assassins trilogy. Actually, I shouldn't say final book because we found out that Robin Lefevers is actually going to be writing, I think, 2 more books in this world. So I think the first one's set to come out in 2018, so next year. It was originally written as a trilogy, and this was the completing book to it. So I actually really loved this one. I always thought that I wasn't gonna love any of the assassins more than I loved Ismay, but this book, which followed Aneth, I actually liked even more. And I have to say that I felt like this book was kind of everything that I really wanted out of Wind Witch, because there were just so many amazing best friend times, and the girls hanging out together and plotting together and just relying on one another. It had very strong female friendships, and I really love that about this book. So this is another one where it's the final book in a series, so I don't want to tell you a synopsis because there's a lot that's going on, but I can tell you that the first book, it starts in Brittany in, I believe it's the 15th century, and it follows a group of girls who are the daughters of death, and they are part of this convent, and they live to serve Mortain, and they get assignments of people that they have to kill, or just different missions that they have to complete in order to help the current Duchess of Brittany maintain her position, because there's a lot of political uproar that's happening, and her story is just insane, and the fact that it is based on fact is so crazy. It's really hard to believe that a lot of this happened. Obviously, the parts about the assassins for death didn't happen. That was that's the fictional part of these, but all of the political stuff is stuff that actually happened. And I ended up giving Mortal Heart 4 out of 5 stars. Then I finally read Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare, and I love this book so much. I liked it so much more than I was expecting to. This was a definite 5 out of 5 stars for me. It was so good. And now, having read everything leading up to this book, I can confidently say that I think that you really should read all the past series before you read this one. It definitely is a good enough story that if you don't, you'll still enjoy it. But there are so many Easter eggs and so many cameos from past characters, and just little things about the world that won't be as impactful to you if you haven't absorbed all of that Shadowhunter history. So I really think that you should read everything before you read this one, and that it is totally worth it because this book was amazing. I cannot wait for Lord of Shadows. This is the Waterstones edition, and they just released the cover and everything and the pre-order for the Lord of Shadows edition, so I already definitely ordered that. But I'm so excited. I'm glad that I caught up. I'm glad that I can now read Lord of Shadows during the time when everyone is going to be reading it, because I felt like everyone was reading Lady Midnight, and I had all of these books left before I could get to this one. And now that I had, almost none of my friends have read it. So there was like no one that I could talk to. And I was like, but there's so much that happened. Like I need anyone to know what I'm talking about. So fortunately my friend Rachel, she happened to have read it. She runs a book blog called Hello Chelly. So I basically attacked her on Instagram DM and I was like, but this and this and this. And I just love it. I love the Blackthorn family so much. They're probably my second favorite, like, large family next to the Weasleys, which is a huge deal. Every character in here is so well developed. They each have such a distinct personality, and they all just like work really well together, and there's just so many things that made me happy in this book. So I loved it. Again, 5 out of 5 stars. Like, oh my gosh, you have to read this. Then I read When Dimple Met Rishi. This is by Sandhya Menon, and I'm probably not saying her name right, which I feel really bad about, but I really loved this book as well. This is a YA contemporary romance novel. So it follows a girl named Dimple and a guy named Rishi. The two of them are Indian Americans, and their family, they made like a suggestion for an arranged marriage between them. Dimple is planning on going away to this computer programming program over the summer in San Francisco because she's going to Stanford in the fall for computer programming. So this is going to be like a good way to kind of get her foot in the door in like the world of app development before she goes. Oh, and she also is like, she's a really, really strong person. She is a feminist. She is an amazing character. And then there's Rishi, who is very traditional, and his parents tell him about Dimple and about the suggestion of them like potentially getting married. So they send him off to the same program so that the two of them could meet and see if there could potentially be something there if they want to get married in the future. So Rishi is a hopeless romantic, and he's just so cute. And he goes there like with the intention of meeting his future. He's like already thinking about like when they'll get married and how, if they're going to be long distance, because he's going to school across the coast. But they're so cute. This book was absolutely hilarious. And I think the best way to describe it is that it is basically two Indian American teens who are struggling with like striking a balance between finding themselves and discovering their values while still like upholding tradition and honoring their parents. So it was really, really interesting. I thought it was so well written. I was laughing so much during this book. I think my favorite part ever was like their first meeting with each other. It was just so funny. But yeah, this is definitely one to look out for. It's coming out at the end of May, and it's really like, it's a book that should not be missed. It is so good, and oh, it's so enjoyable. I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I read a lot of 4 out of 5 stars books this month, actually. The next book that I read is By Your Side by Casey West. This is Casey West's newest book. It came out in January, and it follows a girl named Autumn who suffers with anxiety, and she accidentally gets locked in a library right before she's supposed to be going on a weekend trip with her friends. So she thinks that her friends will notice that she's missing. They don't. And then she's stuck in this library for 3 days because it's over Martin Luther King Day weekend. So she realizes that she's not alone. There's this guy named Dax in the library also, and Dax is kind of like a loner. He's very misunderstood. He recently like spent time in juvie, and he doesn't really talk to anyone or open up to anyone. So the two of them are stuck there together, and Autumn tries to like make the best of her time with him, try to talk to him and, you know, play games and just try to make it like a little bit easier, and also try to escape because she does not want to be stuck in there. So the pair of them, they get a little bit closer, and it's just really, really, it's like a really cute story. I know a lot of people didn't like this one as much as Casey West's other books, but I really like totally did. And I really appreciated Autumn's anxiety. I thought that it was a really accurate portrayal. I thought overall like it was just so well done. It was so cute. I really enjoyed it, and I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. Then I finished out another trilogy, and that is We'll Always Have Summer by Jenny Han. This is the 3rd book in the summer series, and this book was really frustrating. I enjoyed it because I love Jenny Han's like writing and stories, and I was already invested in the characters from the first 2 books, but it was definitely a frustrating read. I am very happy though that my ship did sail in this book, so that made me feel good. But it starts out as a like fun contemporary series, but things get a lot heavier as the books progress. The second one had a really difficult thing that happened in it. And then this third one has a bunch of other things that happen, and it's like really hard to see the choices that these characters are making. But I liked the way that it ended. I thought that it was wrapped up nicely, and I'm pleased with it. So I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, the original screenplay by J.K. Rowling, and this was so enjoyable. I don't think I need to tell any of you what it's about, but I really loved it, and it was really fun because it kind of felt like I was just watching the movie over, and now the movie's out on Blu-ray, which I actually still need to pick up, but I really enjoyed reading it. I was laughing out loud during this one as well, and just remembering like some of the moments that had slipped my mind from when I saw the film last year. So obviously this was 5 out of 5 stars. Then I reread A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, which is really exciting because that is yet another reread that I have done for the year, which is like more than I did last year, so that's good. Me, Alexa, and Christina are doing a like reread-a-thon of this book and A Court of Mist and Fury. The A Court of Mist and Fury reread along starts very soon, but it's very casual. We're just rereading these so that we'll be all caught up in time for ACOWAR. But I have to say it was like a really interesting going back and reading this book, knowing what I know from A Court of Mist and Fury. We're going to be writing reaction posts on our blog later this week, so if that comes out first, I'll leave a link to it down below. But it was definitely like a completely different experience reading this time around. And I was actually kind of surprised that it took me a little bit longer to get into this time. It wasn't until we got to like the world of Prithian that I was like, okay, now I'm like really invested and interested in this. There were some moments in this that were just so changed. And I really I started like a list of like feelings that I was having while I was reading it. And it was really fun to just like, I don't know, get it out and talk about it. But yeah, it was really enjoyable, and I actually ended up lowering my rating of this the second time around to 4 out of 5 stars. If Asimov did not exist, I probably would have still thought this was a 5-star read. It is nice to see like the things that have been set up and everything, but I just thought Asimov was like so much better. So 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Wires and Nerves by Marissa Meyer. This is a graphic novel, and it's the first in a duology, I believe, and it follows Aiko, who is Cinder's android from the Lunar Chronicle series. It was so cute. I really, really enjoyed this. I love the artwork. It's all done in like blue tones, so it looks really good. Like the whole thing is very like cohesive, and it was just really fun to see everybody from the Lunar Chronicles books like back together again, and it was really, really interesting to see like the way that they were drawn, because some people looked exactly how I had thought that they were gonna look, and then other people looked totally different, even though I knew like their character descriptions. And I just love Aiko. I think that she's such a great character, so it was really fun to get more of her, and I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel. And this is the first book in the Themis Files. This is an adult sci-fi book. It was really interesting. It starts with this girl who goes like on a bike ride, and then she falls down this hole, and it ends up being like this giant room with a huge metal hand in the middle of it. And then a whole bunch of years later, like no one has ever figured out the mystery behind this hand. But the little girl becomes a physicist, and she ends up leading the team that's trying to figure out like where this hand is from and the rest of the mystery surrounding it. So I don't want to say what happens, but it is very quick paced, and this is told all through like interviews. So it's like a dossier style, which I understand like the reason why they did that, but I did feel that it made it a little bit difficult to get to know any of the characters too well, or to get attached to them too well, because everything that they were answering were like questions that they were being asked. It wasn't like you were getting to know their character or their thoughts that they were like having on their own. The interviewer is a very mysterious person, and you don't find out like very much about them at all. I'm definitely interested enough that I want to read the second book, which is coming out on Tuesday, or could be out already at this point. But it wasn't my favorite, but it was intriguing. It definitely makes you think, which is nice. But I liked it. I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars, and I will be reading the next book. Then I read My Life Next Door by Huntley Fitzpatrick. This is the first Huntley Fitzpatrick book that I've read, and I'm really glad that I did. It follows a girl named Samantha, whose mom is a senator, and her mom is one of those people that like needs everything to be perfect all the time, and like she doesn't really talk about like feelings that much, and everything has to be like proper, and all appearances have to be perfect and everything. And Samantha has these next door neighbors called the Garretts. They're like a huge family of people, and they're so nice. But the description says it best. Like, they're a very loud and messy family, but there's so much love there, and it was so much fun like getting to know their family. So Samantha never interacts with them until one day, one of the boys, Jace, ends up on her roof, and the two of them end up forming a friendship and then a romance. And it's so, so cute. And just to see like the way that Samantha kind of changes her outlook on life, and like just sees that just because people are doing something differently doesn't mean that they're doing it wrong. So that was really enjoyable, but this does get like really serious in the middle of the book, because in the beginning you have this like cute fluffy contemporary, and then this really like tragic, horrible thing happens, and the second half of the book is like dealing with that thing and figuring out the right way to go from there. So it was really challenging to read, but it was so well done. I really enjoyed it, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Then the last book I read was very impulsive, and that was 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. I like had not been planning on reading this at all, because I had had it on my Amazon wishlist for so long, and I just never picked it up, never bought it or anything. And then Penguin Teen was kind enough to send me a package that included the book in honor of the Netflix series that was coming out. And I was like, you know what, maybe I'll read this, and then I can watch the show like having read the book. And I'm just so glad that I did. It follows a guy named Clay, and he's received a box of mysterious tapes, and it turns out that all of these tapes are from a girl named Hannah Baker, who committed suicide a couple of weeks earlier. She gives him a total of 7 tapes, each one labeled and having 2 sides, and she in the beginning tells him that there are 13 reasons on these tapes as to why she killed herself. These tapes like go through her story and tell exactly everything that like snowballed into leading her up to getting to this point. It was so sad, and it's a really challenging read, but it does touch upon like really important social issues, and I think it sends a really important message about the way that you should treat other people. You never know what someone else is going through, so something that might seem small to you could be a huge deal to someone else. So you really need to think about your actions, and just think about like, you just really need to think about your actions and how they're going to affect someone else, because you just never know. But I really, really enjoyed this one. I read it so quickly, and I've started the Netflix series, and I really like it. And I like the changes that they've made to it. It's very different than the book, but I think that it's really working very well. And I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. So those are all of the books that I read in March. There are so many of them, and it feels like this is going to be the longest video ever, so sorry. But yeah, I'm very pleased with my reading for this month. Hopefully I can read as many books in April, but we'll see. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I talked about, or let me know your favorite book that you read in March. And I'll see you guys soon in a new video. Bye!